Like, Clive just did something to me. There's something about Clive specifically that, like, altered my brain chemistry. You don't know what it is, but Clive has ignited the Final Fantasy girlies. I know what it is. I know exactly what it is. It's really easy, actually. The answer to this is very simple. So you know how, like, every Final Fantasy guy on the planet is in love with Tifa because of her big you-know? It's the same with girls with Clive, if you know what I mean. That's why. Wait, hold on. I think people are misinterpreting the words I said. I think people are misinterpreting me a little bit right now. I'm talking about his chest. I'm talking about his big chest. His big chest with his cleavage out. That's what I'm talking about. I think people are misunderstanding me. There have been other Final Fantasy guy characters like this. Here's what I think. And granted, I am not the, I do not have the authority on all of the Final Fantasy men in the franchise. I am not the one with all the know-how. But here's what I think. While certainly Clive is not the only character with his chest out, and he's definitely not the only, like, toned Final Fantasy man, there's certainly plenty. They just nailed it with him. They just nailed it with him. They just simply nailed it with him. They, like, did it perfect with him. Like, of course he's not the only Final Fantasy dude with a big chest out there, but nor is Tifa the only Final Fantasy girl with a big chest out there, but everyone loves Tifa, right? Like, something about Tifa, they did it just right, and it's the same thing with Clive. It's the same thing with Clive. Like, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of Final Fantasy protagonists, and I specifically mean the main character. Like, the character who is the face of the game. Of all of those characters, like, the only character off the top of my head I can think of who has, like, his chest out is, like, Tidus. And no offense to Tidus. Like, no offense to Tidus. Tidus is funny. Tidus is funny, but Clive is like, oh, you know? You know? And then what other Final Fantasy men do we have in, like, the lead spot? Like, don't get me wrong, I do not want my words to get twisted into, like, other Final Fantasy men have not been hot, because that is not true. I think plenty of Final Fantasy men have been hot. But oh, Clive. Oh, Clive. Oh, Clive. Oh, actually, I just remembered what the actual real answer is. It's because Clive is in his 30s. That's why. I don't know how to tell you guys this. Clive is 33, and, he is the only Final Fantasy main character, and I am specifically talking about the main character. Not like party members, but like the face of the game. He is the oldest Final Fantasy protagonist. The second oldest after him is Cecil from Final Fantasy IV, who is 22. Hi, so I don't know how to say this, but I was wrong. Cecil isn't 22, he's 20 years old, which means that he is not the second oldest Final Fantasy protagonist. I don't know why I thought he was 22. I guess I'm a fake Final Fantasy fan, sorry. The second oldest Final Fantasy protagonist is actually Cloud and Lightning, who are tied at 21. Okay, thank you. Clive is 33. That's why. Yes, the age of 30 is on demand. I just figured out the actual real answer. Because what? Like, I think the next oldest is like Cloud at 21. Cloud is like 21. Squall is 18. I think Tidus is also 18. Vaughn is like 16 or 17 or something. Who else is there? Noctis is kind of a special case, but even Noctis is younger than Clive. Noctis for most of the game is like 18 or something, maybe 20. I don't remember, but I remember he's younger than Cecil for most of the game. Clive is 33. That is why Clive does so many things to my brain chemistry. And also, and this one's gonna hurt to say out loud, it also means that of the Final Fantasy protagonists, and again, I'm specifically talking about the faces of their respective games, it means of the Final Fantasy protagonists, Clive is the only one that's older than me. Yeah. Clive is the only Final Fantasy protagonist who's older than me, and I love him for that. Oh my god, look at him! Look at him! Oh! I love him. I love him. But yeah, he's an adult man with his titties out. Final Fantasy VII Sid was 30. Remember the character designer said when he designed them, he was in his 20s and thought 30 was old. That's why I specifically mentioned, like, the main characters. Like, Auron is also, like, 30, which is hilarious because he looks like 50. Yeah, Auron is 30. They were mistaken into think we only wanted teen boys. That was a mistake on their part, and they have finally listened to the masses and given us our 30-year-old man. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad. This is actually a really interesting conversation. I think it actually does play a big part into why Clive is so popular with, like, women, but also in general. It's not the only reason Clive is popular, of course. There's a lot of reasons why Clive is very well liked, but I do think the age thing is actually something that's worth mentioning. Because something to keep in mind also, video games are pretty young. Video games started like picking up in popularity in like the 80s and 90s. So the people who started playing video games around that time are now in like their 30s and 40s, right? And then even older. So what I'm trying to say is that the first people who grew up on video games are now like my age and older and stuff. And I think that plays a huge part into why Clive is popular, because again, like I mentioned before, of the main characters of Final Fantasy, he is the only one who is older than 30. And that's a pretty big part of it. But it's not only that. Another thing to keep in mind is while Clive is not the only playable character who's been like 30 and up, right? There have been plenty of characters in their 30s, like Sid from 7 was brought up. There's also Auron from 10. He looks like he's 50 or 60. The dude's 35. The dude's 35 and he looks like that. Meanwhile, Clive is in his 30s, and if I told you, like, you wouldn't really know it. Like, him being 30s, they don't even really mention it. It's just a thing about him. He looks his age. He looks like he's in his 30s. And the game is not treating him like he's this old man, right? So that, I think, plays a big part into why Clive is as popular as he is. Now, of course, all of the other previous Final Fantasy protagonists have plenty of their fans. Like, Cloud Strife, please. He's got so many girls at his feet. Like, come on. But Clive in particular, we've got a character who's in his 30s, the main character of his respective game. And the game actually treats him like a 30-year-old instead of like a 60-year-old. It's great. It's just nice to actually have like a guy who's like our age to like. And we still like other Final Fantasy characters, other main characters of Final Fantasy, but they're babies. Like Cloud Strife is 21, he's a baby. So yeah, I do think the age angle actually is a part in why Clive is popular as he is. Now again, that's not the only reason, but it definitely is a reason, and that's interesting to think about. Interesting to think about.